Hey, it's Michael. It's week 3. So, what does week 3 mean? Well, as I said, there's a lot in this class that's going to be very repetitive, and there's going to be a lot of things that only reveal itself over time. So, let me just give some ideas of what we're doing this week, but I just want to let you know that you're already experiencing some of the techniques that we're going to end up using to organize information. So, last week went really well. I hope everybody got their grade, understood any feedback that I gave them. I think everything looked good, but that's just the beginning. You need some data to work with, and that's why in most situations you'll be given that data. Oftentimes you won't be given that data, which is even more puzzling, but data itself is something that really does need to be understood, and all of you explored what data is. I don't want to reiterate this, but the data model is all these fields and the values in them that help support and describe perhaps some more prominent piece of content. And what could be a better example, I think, than Twitter? Seeing this, a lot of you had not really experienced Twitter before. What is truly incredible about Twitter is that it, as you've all encountered, is just the largest open source of data, searchable data that exists that I can think of. Now, obviously, if you're looking in Google, it's a different situation. We won't do that. It contains anything that's on a website, but this is a actual piece of data that someone contributed. And many of you explored what was in that data itself, which is fine, although you might have seen up here there's a real warning to try to avoid using hashtags because, well, for one big reason, they didn't invent hashtags right off the bat. They actually, someone invented hashtags that was not Twitter, but we'll go into some of these ideas later. Because you all found out how great it is, you all got results no matter what you searched for, which is pretty amazing, but at the same time, probably not much of it made any sense. Awesome. It's exactly what data is like. There's a lot of it, and not always does it make sense. So hopefully, at least through this experience, you've started to understand, well, how would you ever get it to make any sense? And I'm saying that those are the extra fields, such as if someone said something, maybe it makes it make a little bit more sense. So understanding the user that contributed it, etc. But the whole goal of this class is to try things out. There's really no wrong answers. Really, the only wrong thing to do is to not do things early and maybe also get some feedback and learn from that experience. So if we go over here, you all went and tried your best to use some different techniques, including going to Airtable and searching there, or trying this idea of scraping, which is cool because now you see the web itself is a data source that you can grab things from. That's kind of cool. Still, the real outcome is to have a decent data model that describes something. So where many of you are going to have difficulty is that if your data does not describe something, I'm going to say something physical is good, something, a thing that again kind of conceptually makes sense. Many of you, for example, chose a restaurant. Makes some sense, right? Now, if that restaurant is Chili's, okay, well, does one row describe every Chili's? That's where we start to understand a little bit more about the complexities of data modeling. These things will puzzle you, and they are things that are meant to puzzle you because as an information architect, you have to try to make sense of things. So confusion, misunderstandings, and constantly trying to get feedback on your ideas is critical to this job and to this class. So continue to share early if you want feedback. If you're just lost completely, there was an area down here about any issues with this. So I do want to say it's completely understandable that these things are hard. My hope is always to give them a try, look at what others are doing, look at comments that other people get, etc. It's all good. So still getting used to it. I know a lot of you are still coming from the idea of how other courses handle conversation. Right now, contribution is 80%, contributing something. Conversing about it is great, but that isn't the main goal. It's really to look at other people's work, so continue to contribute something, not just converse about it. But we're in week 2 or week 3, sorry, and week 3 is about patterns. Patterns, yes. Patterns in a nutshell, and please again, I'm not trying to paraphrase anything written in the module for this week, so please read it thoroughly. I'd also familiarize yourself a little bit with assignment 2, because that's going to be really a fun challenge for many. It's going to be good. But right now we're about, does your data make any sense at all? And here's some steps. So please follow these steps. And then we're going to say, because you chose the topic, my hope is that you have some understanding of the topic, that you feel comfortable making decisions about it. That's basically it. So when I started with the perfume ingredients, I then tried to kind of make it into a little bit about how do you make perfume. So if it's very short or small amount of data, such as how many perfume ingredients are there, well, let's consider there to be 1,000. How many perfumes are there? Well, let's pretend that there's 20 to 30,000. Again, these are not infinite, but they're big enough data sets to make the relationship between the ingredients of a perfume, the perfume itself. There's a lot to work with there. That's what I'm thinking of. So if anything in your data feels finite, we need to explore that and fix it this week, because you're going to be really looking at it. And I'm going to start asking some questions where you start to see meaning in your data. And that's really the focus of this week, is getting this data set to be kind of more usable and also more about you. If you got your data set from someplace, forget where you got it. It doesn't matter where you got it. You're using this as an example of a quick start to describe something. If you don't know what your topic is, pick a different topic. There's still room this week to throw everything out and start from scratch. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense, because the investment last week was to try to jumpstart. It's still that way. It's really about you owning and understanding the data, and even more interestingly, what would you imagine doing with it? So, and my goal was to understand, how do you take a different scents and make something pleasant, and how do you even describe those scents, so that if I was going for some particular idea or emotion or description, that I could find the ingredients that matched with that. So that's a real, as we'll get into next week, that's a real problem of how do you describe a thing without using the thing itself. A lot to think about. Again, just trying to give you a little heads up and a little feedback from last week. Always, you can comment, contribute, and we can discuss any issues that you may have and share with others, and have a great week.